Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday, February 12th, 2013. It tragically is no longer Monday, but that's okay, it's Tuesday. Day 9 Daily number 552, where we learn to be a better gamer. In today's show, we're going to take a look at LiquidTLO playing a psychotic game in Heart of the Swarm. The main goal of this one is to go back to our roots and to ask ourselves those ever so basic questions that we no longer ask ourselves. Why the hell are we doing what we're doing? And we're going to see that given an extremely weird situation, not just Heart of the Swarm, new units kind of weird, but also crazy circumstantial attacking and odd positioning sort of weird, we'll see how TLO works his way out of it and takes advantage of some mistakes that the opponent makes. Just to give you a little lowdown on the week, there will be a daily tomorrow, a daily on Thursday. I will be casting an after-hours gaming league match on Wednesday evening, that is tomorrow evening. On Friday, I will be doing the Day 9 Day Off, where I will play Link to the Past Part 2. I will hopefully beat it in the 7 hours I am streaming that day. Saturday is the Collegiate Star League Finals that will be in Los Angeles. Go to teamliquid.net for details, or go to my Twitter to locate the tweet. That's at Day9TV. On Sunday, I will be recording Why We Like It, Episode 3 with Tristan, where we're going to talk about the comic book Watchmen, which I actually have here right next to me. Yeah, I really like Watchmen. I've been rereading through it. And on Monday is Fun Day Monday, so please submit to me your replays of you only attacking with medevac drops. You may do a normal frontal push, only if you are doing 2 simultaneous medevac drops. Otherwise, just non-stop medevac dropping all the time. I think that's it. Now, this eye has been very irritated. I have removed the contact from it, and because I know that this is important to you, I was going to put it on in air. Here we go. Before we step into this Zerg versus Terran game, between TLO and a barcode player from the latter, there's a little spiel I want to talk about assumptions and about the tools that we end up utilizing to analyze games. Oh, that's so good. Oh, let's... God, that feels amazing. That feels fantastic. Let me just touch my eye with my finger a little bit to readjust that contact, and we're good. Okay, alright, here we go. Very often, you or someone you know will get really into a game, any game. Maybe it's StarCraft, maybe it's poker, maybe chess, trying to think of other games my buddies have played. Magic, the Gathering a lot. Maybe if you played the Dominion card game, my house plays that a lot. There's all those phrases that you'll start saying, such as, Hellions are not a good unit to mass up. Marines are a good unit to mass up. What are some other things? Yeah, you don't want to go mass Raven. In fact, you probably don't want to go Raven. And when you're watching, you know, let's say when your new friend's playing StarCraft, let's say he's doing some build order where he's going for, like, non-stop Vikings, just building tons of Vikings and almost no other units. What you'd say is, that's bad, Vikings suck unless he's going air. And those kinds of statements, Vikings suck unless he's going air, those are statements that are not facts, they're not true. They're not these, like, straight-up blanket statements. What's actually going on under the hood of a statement like that is that, like, in 90% of situations, if you are building Vikings, you're not going to be in a good situation unless he's going air. It's this sort of conditional thing. Magic the Gathering players are probably more familiar with this, where people will say, that card sucks. When in reality, that card is bad in 99 out of 100 circumstances, but given that 1 out of 100 circumstances, it could be really good. And this is an understandable phenomenon that humans, the brain ends up doing and stuff, because there has to be some way to take all this vast amount of information and boil it down into digestible chunks. But there's a trap. that this will end up causing for us. For instance, if we look at a game of StarCraft and we say something like, oh, he should play standard. Standard doesn't actually mean that it's good or bad. It doesn't actually mean much of anything. And in a lot of standard situations, most people I have asked and have been inquiring about lately, like, why is this a standard thing to do? Most people can't actually tell me why most of the standard builds are standard. Most people can't. Most people just like, well, it's standard because it's a good mix of defense until you can get a big attack up. Sort of vague statements, but no specificity. So the reason I'm choosing this game to look at today between TLO and this barcode dude. Whoa! Listen to those ambient sound effects. Yeah. So good. The reason I liked this game is that it's a great way to be thrown into a number of situations that we have never seen before, or that are, I should say, not typical situations. And we look at these not typical situations and begin asking ourselves those basic questions. Why should we do what we're doing? So there, of course, will be some language like, oh yeah, it's pretty normal to go hatch pool and stuff like that. We're not going to nitpick and gripe on everything, but hopefully we're going to nitpick on enough stuff that it makes you reconsider some of your more typical gameplay analysis. And in fact, you know, I am going to be removing this. My left eye, not the right one, but just the left one, has been just so dry for a long time. Grumble, grumble, mimble, mumble. You know, I was talking to one of my friends who'd been having a lot of trouble. Actually, my friend, he wasn't having trouble. He had a buddy at his work who'd been playing a lot of Terran vs. Protoss. And this is sort of what prompted me to want to do this daily, is that my friend's friend, we'll call him Larry. Larry has basically got himself into a mental corner where he's just saying, oh no, I can't do that because stalkers are, you know, gonna kill off all my units. And you're like, okay, well, if he has stalkers and he's controlling the map, then why don't you take the opportunity to defend and build, you know, an engineering bay? And he's like, well, you can't do that because then he'll attack and kill you, and you have to build up more defenses. And he's just getting himself in one of these mental corners. So that's kind of one of the big points of this daily, is to avoid that. I'm sick of it, Larry. So right off the bat, we are seeing we're going to be doing this game quite slowly. We see a pretty typical looking opening. A Terran player going for the supply depot. Again, part of the wall off, so that way if any of this shenanigans with the barracks goes wrong, we have the wall off at the front to protect us. Our barcode player is doing a build that is kind of not common in Wings of Liberty. Not a lot of people do this because there's really no point. Unless it's something like a really, really swift 8 Reaper, or 8 barracks, 8 Reapers, or not, I keep saying 8 Reaper, an 8 depot, 8 barracks build to get a really fast Reaper. We don't really see this in Wings of Liberty. But this is increasingly common given that the Reaper is just excellent. It's so freaking fast. So what we're going to see out of TLO is the normal opening from Zerg players. We get our hatch up, our expand, and our pool to be able to get the double queen out. That's quite important with a lot of these timings, to get the double queen out. Sure, we could end up going for an early geyser, but we don't want to get it so early that it interrupts our ability to build 2 queens at the same time. If we did that, we'd have to have a damn good reason for that. So, of course, upon spotting this is just kind of a pain. This is just like, alright, well, I have resigned now to accepting and embracing my soon-to-be Reaper-harassed ass. But TLO, I think, is doing a smart response. Given that we've seen this very early aggression, we have really 2 options at this point. We can, 1, go straight for gas. We can just sort of continue along with something like a 17, 18, 19 geyser to get very fast Zergling speed or fast roaches and mount some sort of counterattack on our opponent. I'm not the biggest fan of that kind of maneuver at this point in time. given the way a lot of timings work out, if your opponent is going for this kind of really, really, really swift Reaper play in Wings of Liberty or HOTS, the defense is a little bit too hard to perform and have enough resources left over to do this big push later on. So I like this, basically saying, oh, I will in fact not go for this extractor, and I will elect to go for double queen. Here's a moment where I'm going to gripe, and what a perfect time to gripe. 333. Yes. Here is the way that most people will think of it. They'll think of it from like a camera readjustment direction. Most people think of it from like a forward direction, right? Like, most people think of it from the reverse direction. They say, here is the build I want to do. This build I am choosing because it can hold off that, and that, and that, and that. It holds off all these things. Cool. Why would I say that that is a backwards way to do it? Because it is something that we calculated by basically getting on the ladder, losing a lot, looking at a lot of players, continuing to lose, and just sort of averaged out this build. So very often a player in this situation says, oh, my build is just to go for 4 queens. I'm just going to straight up go 4 queens every single time, and if he goes for this, I can hold it off. But the reason I say that that's a backwards, and emphasize that it's a backwards way of thinking, is that we've elected to no longer think. We've elected not to consider any of what's being presented before us. There is every reason that we can say to ourselves, is this actually a good time to go for an extractor? I wasn't planning on it. I was planning on a 4 queen opening, but maybe now is actually a good time to do this. And that's why I went through that whole analysis where I said, yeah, you know what, we could go for that, but I don't like the way that it won't really give us any benefit, and we'll probably end up suffering quite a bit as a result of it. TLO is exceptional at being a very sort of forward constructing player, where he has obviously a framework, a strategy, a structure. He's not going in blind and just sort of trying to wing it, but TLO is very good at considering these sorts of things. So this is now the StarCraft strategy du jour. The Reaper harassment into endless drone kiting that is quite annoying, to be honest. Quite very annoying. But fortunately, TLO already having some excellent control. And it's very easy in a position like this to just kind of have that, ugh, I'm so dead, this is so dumb, why do I do this, blah bitty blah bitty blah bitty blah. However, we should just do some nice, calm, reasoned analysis. Cool that drone that built the extractor. We're just going to let that finish. It's not an ultra-fast extractor. It's just a sort of, it's an extractor that we are constructing after we have gotten the ability to build our 2 queens, and of course go 1, 2 more queens. Nothing's really being interrupted in this regard. And this is a pretty comfortable defense from TLO. Not terrifying. It used to be quite terrifying to try to experience this sort of thing, because the Reaper has the grenades that kill the buildings off. So that this was a problem where it would wind up being this impossible to hold situation at the hatchery where Zerglings would come up and those would be killed off, and then it would just be a pain. I don't know. I'm emphasizing something I don't need to emphasize, right? It was really bad. But here, it was pretty straightforward. So nice defense. So again, we want to stop and we want to ask ourselves. Actually, I'll go to the 5-minute mark because I like nice round numbers. This is a pretty common situation that we're seeing all over the Heart of the Swarm ladder. So we just sort of do the usual reasonable analysis with it. If our opponent is going for Reapers, for every Reaper that he makes, that is this barracks not doing anything else. It is not getting a tech lab to start upgrades. It is not starting to build any Marines. It is not doing anything other than, bam, going for the Reaper. And in fact, Reapers take up so much time at this barracks. I lost my train of thought. Rats, lost that train of thought. What was I talking about? I'm going to try this one more time. With the barracks going down and building Reapers, it's a huge amount of time lost for everything else. If you want to be going early Reaper, you have to go barracks refinery, which is obviously not going barracks or barracks command center. Your infrastructure is delayed, your expanding is delayed. This is quite a bad situation to be in. Technically, it would be possible for our barcode player to go for a barracks transition off this. However, it would be a slow barracks transition. If he went straight for barracks and didn't expand, we could easily just win on 2 bases, so we're not really too concerned about that. If he did go for expand and then barracks, he's going to be very behind on his marine production, so he'll have to be defensive. So the last possibility that's almost always the transition is that the player just goes for a factory. Why? Because we already got an early gas. There's no way we can spend all that gas given the time that Reapers take to construct and the amount of gas that they take. There's absolutely no way that we can burn all that gas. So going for the factory. Almost always going to be the transition. Now, it's not that he will go for that transition, guaranteed. It's not that if he does anything else, he is bad. We're just listing off the possibilities and making sure that we can beat all of them. And this is one of the most common places I see people sort of fall into the trap. It's not standard. Let's say our barcode player did go 5 barracks at home in the main base, and then went mass marine all in. I know a lot of people who just die to that because they're powering drones. He's supposed to expand and go factory. He's not supposed to go Marines. Why would you go Marines? He has to do all that stuff. Oh, it's so terrible. It will have a low percentage on the ladder, but who cares about his percentage of winning if he's just having 1 game against you and will probably win? Just want to list out all those possibilities. So that's why I wanted to take just a little bit of time to list those out. So against Mass Marine and checking against Mass Marine, well, we have an Overlord that's scouting in and sort of seeing. Against Mass Marine, we would have these 4 Queens that would help for defense. We would also have an already finished spawning pool. Great. So a lot of these options are covered. If our opponent went for the expand, alright, great. We haven't really lost that much momentum on the drone count. We do have our 4 Queens up early and we're continuing to inject away, so excellent. We're really looking quite good. TLO just has to do some, direct deal with it type of micro, and then he'll be fine. A little bit annoying, but no big deal. So, now we see TLO going for a layer, skipping Zergling speed. Not going for roaches, not going for any of that kind of stuff. Now, why would we go for this layer? Why wouldn't we go for Zergling speed? I honestly think that this is, I could do very complicated, all super in-depth analysis, but I think it's pretty much as simple as if he is going for tech-related stuff, as we've noted by this scout, if he's going for something tech-related, he, in particular, is not going to be having a whole bunch of Marines slamming down our front door, and is not going to have a whole bunch of Hellions slamming down our front door. Not for a while, at the very least, because he went for this Reaper opening, and then he went for a command center. So Zergling speed is not really needed to crush any big Marine force coming in to track down and snatch up any Hellions. We don't even really need that much more defense. These Queens are more than good enough. The Zergling speed would only really be needed for attack or defense. The defense we got covered with the Queens. The offense, well, he's walled in, so Zerglings with speed not really going to have any benefit. So far, so good. Pretty much covered all the things. So now TLO just drones up. For every additional Reaper that comes in, this should be an increased mental comfort for droning. This should be another sign of, oh, thank God, he spent another 50 gas going for Reapers. He might not have even been able to go for Starport right now. And in fact, if I saw a 5th Reaper, I would probably be like, yeah, this is going to be damn hard for him to be going Starport Banshees, so I probably don't even really need to have that much detection back home, or that much concern for detection. Yeah. All the delicious liquids. This is one of these annoying things that pretty much everyone is dealing with right now. The double gas at the expansion, all the annoyingness. But here we actually get the opportunity for things to speed up a little bit. TLO, I think, does a very smart thing. Why Overlord speed first? Why is this something we want to be doing? Well, on one hand, we know that we're not going to die, because there's no way that he can be massing up a bunch of barracks. That would just be really physically impossible at this point. But he could be doing any number of things. So we're just rushing straight to the lair and then rushing for Overlord speed so we can get a supremely early scout and then answer a little while later. Look, we have not gone Spire Tech. We have not gone for Infestation Pit. We actually rushed lair to get Overlord speed. This is something that most people would go, what? Most people I know would want to apply backwards thinking. And I don't mean backwards in the derogatory sense. I mean by, this reverse deduction. Most people would apply this backwards logic. They'd be like, okay, so TLO's build is to rush layer and rush Overlord speed? Doesn't it lose to this? And doesn't it lose to this? And doesn't it lose to that? And it's like, no, that's thinking in the opposite direction. Think in the forward direction. We've gotten all this information as we've been playing, therefore what is the next correct step to do? Oh, we can't die now, but there's a ton of things that he could be doing. Rush Overlord speed. Comes out really clean, really nicely. And as another added note, this is something TLO's been doing a lot, if you get Overlord speed, you can drop creep at his expansions. If he is ever delayed at all in getting this expansion up by, hell, I don't know, going for barracks, going for proxy, hellbat drop, all that stuff, this is another really great excuse to go for Overlord speed. So I dig it. I dig it. This is nifty. And of course we see the Widow Mine, which is another transition that a lot of people are doing. Intense harass with all the Reapers to do a little bit of map control, backup defense with the Widow Mines. And now we see all the barracks starting down as our barcode player has started to pull back into a more traditional looking composition with this scout. And once we hit the 9-minute mark, I think that that's about fair enough to begin doing that stopping. Overlords popping right on in, sacrificing themselves on accident. Whoops. But that's okay. We have a nice, neat look at what's going on in our opponent's base. And even though we rushed for a layer and are only now just getting the infestation pit, we can see clearly there were these nice logical steps all the way along. So when we come back into part 2, we're going to get into the mid-game, where there's going to be some more decisions going on for TLO. And some more interaction with the opponent. I don't even know why I prompted that. Look, we're going to see the mid-game, alright? The mid-game's going to happen because that's what happens after the early game. Day 9! Oh, here, this is where you learn to be a better gamer. Yeah! Oh, yeah. Alright, going on a break.